Hello everyone! Guess who's back on that caster grind set? It's me. Figured I'd get some caster practice in before the tournament this November. Anyway, we have kind of a stacky stack going on. The teams are both in VCs, except for one. Apple is not in a VC in Team 1, but for the most part, everyone is coordinating, so we will see some really fun stuff today. We are here on Ruby Shelf Large, the best 5v5 map. We forgot to turn up the points on this one, which means it's to 1,000 with 7 cap points, but I have a feeling 7, 6? What the fuck? I'm already losing it. Okay, great. Anyway, Team 1. Team 1 ANS, Team 2 OSP, as per normal here. Team 1, we have Surzal, Lambu, Stacy, Ambient Lamp, and Apple. Team 2, Star, Bell, Secret Mink, Potato Master, and Cheese Slayer. Taking a look at the deployment so far, both teams are getting into position here. These are very coordinated teams with very, very excellent builds. We're going to be seeing some really high-level gameplay today, ideally. You would think that you'd see high-level gameplay with a bunch of high-ranking players in the lobby, but you'd be surprised. Anyway, looks like ANS, Team 1, is going to focus more heavily on F side here. It looks like they're deploying high. I'm seeing some Axfords, a BB, looks like a triple CL fleet. That's Mark at the time. That is Stacy there, bringing a starter. We'll see if that's actually the starter or not. Some more Axfords and some beams and stuff with some light assets on E side to an attempt to deny the point. Conversely, on OSP side, looks like they're going middle and F as well. All right, so both front line are looking to face each other here on the F trench. Looks like we have several liners. Curiously enough, all three of these liners are taken by different people. One from Bell, one from Cheese, and one from Secret Mink. We will see what that's all about when we take a look at what the teams have. Looks like we also have some liners from Star going middle with probably a Bloodhound Tug is what that is. Various shuttles. There is another liner there going low. Liners up top. And lots of shuttles, and that's probably a meat journeyman on the other side there for cap stuff. For people who don't know, for some reason right now, the journeyman's structure hitbox is not included within the big hangar bay thing it has at the front, which means that from the front, journeymen are effectively immortal because you can't break their structure hitbox, and they have a ton of health bar in those big compartments there, which is why people use them as like sacrifices for caps. Anyway, taking a look at the teams, let's start with ANS. Starting with Surzal, we have a battleship. This is Evil 11. 250 backpack for dealing with light craft, VLS 2, and an extra antenna. No comms jammer on the BB itself by the looks of it. Nope, actually, nope, it's down there. Quad drive, we are running, I'm assuming standard para, yep. And with a scryer is always nice. This is a minimal investment BB, only 2 restores on this thing, and that is to make room for the 2 keystones here. I'm assuming these are beams, not rails like I assumed. One of them heading E, and the other one staying at, no, probably going A based on where it is. Very odd spot to put an 8 and I beamstone for ANS, but that is a very nice fleet from Surzal, able to accomplish multiple things, both frontline and a little bit of cap war. Ambient Lamp is running the classic double CL beamstone cap fleet here. 2 really cringe CLs for sweeper duty, a beamstone for audio denial, or area denial. What the fuck did I just say? And anyway, and then 4, not even any cringe cappers in here. 4 cheap cappers is pretty strong considering what the rest of the fleet is. Apple is running. Looks like we have a Esper-esque ship here. Not sure if it's Big Milk based. Tons of different missile types in here. Both S3 and S2s. Decent DC team as well. The beam has 3 FPAs on the beam is really strong too. Gives it a nice secondary weapon. Very deadly ship here. Going really high. Curious. They want to play that behind cover, I would assume, to make sure it doesn't get killed before it gets into range. Lambu running. 450 Axford plus escorts here. We have a VLS 2, probably active decoys and SDMs. Comms jammer, and also just point defense, which allows the Axford to be fully greeted with secondary batteries and the VLS 3 backpack. Very, very heavy asset there. And Stacy is running. This is Mark the Time, Proven Factor, and the Pound. This is not TF Birch. This is something different. Looks like one with the Cello Killers. I see Please Die A, B, and C. Yep, those are Cello Killer missiles and these CLs. Very nice to see it. Those are going to be very deadly against OSP. Taking a look at the initial situation here. OSP sends a full gun capper with a sun drive onto E here. ANS is countering, trying to get their own capper on point. RPF is already coming out from the CL here. Will likely kill this ship. I doubt it's going to be able to kill it in time, considering this thing has a damage control team and is already on the point. Multiple other flankers flanking around the map here. This is 2 rocket shuttles flanking around on at east side here. F gets stepped on first by Cheeslayer, who manages to get their ship into this hidden little crevice here, away from ANS sensors. Very nice there. 40 meters per second CL is crazy. This is the standard build, unless... Oh, no. No, that's kind of the standard build for CLs. OSP also stepping onto B and A here. Very minimal area denial from ANS as they are getting... Oh, no, never mind. They do deny B with the CLs. That is 1 kill. There is a secondary capper about to hit the point here, trying to dive into cover behind the rock here to get into cover. It is spotted. CLs need to swap target and lock that ship before it gets into cover. Meanwhile, Cheese is pushing a cringe capper behind this protected area back here. Ambient Lamp will likely get this ship onto the A point in time to contest it, although that point will not go to anyone here. OSP takes F and loses E, actually. ANS is able to kill that capper before it takes the point and steps onto E themselves to try to take the point, although Lancer Squadron from Secret Mink is able to kill before the cap goes off there. Very, very quick rush on the cap points, as you'd expect from these experienced players here. They know how to win the game. They know how to contest space. Let's take a look at what OSP's brought. Bell is running. Double 250 liner with torpedo backpack. Don't see torpedo backpack too often. Very interesting build here. One of them already target locked by some CLs, is diving up to get into cover here. Jamming is out from the CLs, which means that it's unable to return fire. The liner gets into this really nice protected spot here where it can duck down and attack B. A very, very aggressive play from Bell, but very, very well rewarding. Cheese Slayer is running their 250 liner cap fleet here. 1 250 liner. Bunch of cappers, both cringe and gun. We are doing the single gun chaff locked and Pavis build on these. A couple cringe cappers around the map, one of them on A, contesting A with its arming missile. And we also have 1 MMT and 2 MMTs. 2 MMTs flanking around the sides of the map here. Hunter's radar on those gives them excellent sensor coverage. Potato Master! Double 450 liner with Sal's backpack with a hangar bay, probably for skiffs. Yep, we've got some skiffs out already. It looks like they are running 2 of these. Yep, very nice. Plus a Bloodhound tug, I'm assuming this is. Very nice. Double track correlated. Yep, very, very excellent long-range sensor tool there. Secret Mink is running. This is not a meat journeyman. This is a fully combat-capable carrier. Probably a lot of light strike in here, I would assume. SDMs and SGM-1s. Those SGM-1s are offensive, likely either act or saw. Very nice there. It gives Secret Mink a lot of light strike capabilities. We saw how effective that was on E earlier on. Secret Mink also has a 450 liner on the opposite side of the map here. Tall's backpack with some containers here, likely either Helljoys or decoys. Decoys. Very, very nice. And a couple of rocket shuttles rounds things out. As we saw before, these rocket shuttles positioned in ANS's backline here, ready to jump out on those beamstones once OSP identifies where they are. And Star is running. Double 450 liner, no backpack, it looks like, spending the points into getting a double track correlated Bloodhound tug, as well as a couple of cappers. Nope, not cappers, more rocket shuttles. Lots of really well-positioned rocket shuttles. Not a lot of them, but really well-positioned. These things are already trying to get flanks around the side here. You can see if they are able to get flanks on the beamstones and such that ANS has, those are going to be very powerful assets in helping to deny ANS their very strong cap denial assets. Taking a look at the points right now, OSP's initial rush onto a lot of the points gets countered quite aggressively here. Both F and B, which OSP flanked speed on at the very beginning, do go into the hands of ANS. ANS has pretty strong control over Boxer right now. This ship, at a moment's notice, can do step back on the point while still being hidden here, even from Bell's liner up top. Bell's liner now pushing out to engage the CLs, but the reactor bloom at the worst possible time darkens the CLs. These things have gone dark from the radiation from the bloom. Bell does reacquire. Bell is dark. The center of mass of this liner perhaps not able to be detected by the CLs. No, Bell is full pushing out now. There's the detection, and there's the target lock. Stacy is likely going to counter jam, try and break the lock. That is a pinpoint lock. That is very difficult to break. But 250 counterfire is likely going to go into Bell there. ANS also gets F here. They have ships in really good positions to deny that. A Beamstone and CLs are in really good spots there. A is being infinitely contested by these two ships hiding from each other. One of them is a really weak cringe capper, which means if ANS is able to get pretty much any fire on this thing at all, they will be able to dislodge it. E is decently open for OSP, kind of. There are 2 CLs and a Beamstone here denying it. The Beamstone is facing in the right direction. All right, so it's going to be really difficult for OSP to take E, and both teams' naturals, as expected, are very well guarded. Right now, the front line is testing the waters here. Both teams' frontline fleets are now engaging. Lambu engages on a decoy, likely launched from Secret Mink here, trying to bait out the enemy frontline, trying to ID it. Those are missiles out from the backpack of Apple. These are apples. These are HE-shaped. These are Act EO Val. That is a very strong Seeker combo, as multiple missiles are going to slam into Star's liner here. One HEKP unfortunately goes right through the back there, although it does knock out a cannon. Damage control central and a small DC, reds out the storage. Not a lot of damage, but those things are going to be at low health once they're restored, which is really easy for 450 HE to knock out. Meanwhile, the BB from Surazal continues to trade fire with Star's other liner here. Manages to knock out both mags. Very unfortunate damage spread here for Star, as both mags are the only things that are really knocked out on the ship here. Kind of poor luck on their part. Surazal able to orbit dodge with this quad drive here. You can see Double Raider, Whiplash, Dragonfly. Even with the limited restores this thing has, this thing is going to experience a lot of survivability at this range, able to orbit dodge quite effectively. And Star right now is struggling, trying to get into cover to enact damage control. Their other liner also pulling back. Star frantically trying to restore things here. Right now, the rest of the liners that I think Star was counting on to assist in their engagement here are kind of just hiding behind the map here. Bell is flanking around the side here in the 250 liner. Guns facing in the wrong direction. Does Bell know? Yep, there's the roll. The liner's starting to roll onto target as it accepts its new heading command, and roll likely. Although that thing is probably going to get spotted out here pretty quickly considering how large it is and how many ships are in the area. Lambu continuing to fire on a decoy, has swapped fire from one decoy to the other, perhaps realizing one is a decoy, but hasn't yet identified the other. The battleship immediately begins firing at... That's Chi-Slayer's MMT gets spotted out for a second there. Jamming coming out, though, manages to hide it, but ANS now knows that that's there. 450 swaps to Bell's liner. The turrets are still facing in the wrong direction. Bell with a little bit of a skill issue here. Unfortunately... Yeah, you really have to micro the roll and heading on liners if you want them facing in the right direction. Now, that being said, that is a double-drive liner. That thing is going to flip around really quickly here. 450 fire from Secret Mink now pops out with free real estate here. Unfortunately, Surazal is still bow on. More of these missile salvos out. These are the same ones. Act EO Val, that's ARAD Act. Act EO Val, a mix of multiple different missile types and warhead types. Do stage on Potato Master here. Hits do come through, some of them. Looks like that was 2 hits on the lead one. Second one not staging. Second one perhaps set to reject. The primary seeker probably set to reject here as a Blackjack on until the end is able to cover the liners quite effectively from that EO there. This is a S1 Saw Dump from Aura Squadron here. Is able to kill out this capper on A. OSP is now able to cap this A point here, although ANS has held cap advantage for a while now here. E point now being captured by OSP. The MMT has pushed the CLs back. The CL takes a lot of damage here. Probably struck by Claw or... No, the rocket shuttles did not engage. That was probably the MMT then that got through. Yep, MMT is lower on missiles than it was before, meaning it got through. The Beamstone is completely gutted. That is beams down. That thing is killed. Very nice kill from the MMT there. OSP is now taking A here. If Apple has any cruise missiles, now's the time to try and hit this thing, although it is quite hidden behind the point there. OSP attempting to get a cap lead here, although all they are going to do is tie it right now. E and A being secured just brings it to a tie. It is still OSP's game here to push and secure points. Bell gets to a little bit of a cover spot here, pushing forward towards the enemy's fleet here. Surazal not microing the Beamstone, just keeping it pointed towards the point here. More shots out on decoys, although Surazal, that's the only thing in arc for Surazal's liner here. Looks like Potato Master is trying to flank around the top here, trying to get crossfire on ANS Capitals, which are very much dependent on being bow onto the target. Apple out in the open here in a close-range missile Axford. Apple needs to get into cover. Those 450 rounds are going to chew this thing up. 14 teams, though, does mean this thing is going to be relatively okay. That is also 450 HE. Yep, Apple is burning, trying to get back into cover here. Bell sends a Torp Strike onto a cruise torpedoes. These are Act Wake Valve cruise torpedoes, which are heading out towards the CLs here. They are Act Wake Valve. Unfortunately, Chaff not out. One of the CLs takes a bunch of hits to the nose, knocks out most of the guns. Very unfortunate hit for Stacy here. Yep, there's the Lizard Call. This is, for people who don't know what this is, I'm not even going to fucking explain it. More torpedoes out. That is just one, probably a misfire from Bell. The MLS launchers are very, very inconsistent. Stacy here being caught out at close range. Rather unfortunate situation to be in. Surazal already pivoting the Beamstone to assist. Second salvo is out. These are more Act Wake Val. Chaff needs to be out, and these CLs need to be moving backward. Launch of Chaff is already out. Those are the Acello Killers out on Bell. If these are direct fire, Bell is going to get back into cover before these missiles hit. You can see the speed of the liner here being incredibly powerful. The second salvo of torpedoes mostly goes into Chaff. The defenders are enough to clean most of it up, and the Acello Killers unfortunately do rock PD. Unfortunately for Bell, or unfortunately for Stacy, that was a really nasty hit on their CLs here. One of them is really gutted right now. Most of its guns down, mag down. It does not have the restores to bring itself back up to full functionality here. Surazal, however, is now pivoting the Beamstone here, recognizing that he can't do anything at A. Pivoting down towards B to try and stop Bell here. More of these S3Hs from Apple out. They stage on the decoys, almost whip around and hit Secret Mink there. More cruise torpedoes from Bell. Miss the Axford. Not enough of maneuverability, unfortunately, for Bell there as they whiff. Lambu does have a scryer on this, so now has an idea on what those torpedoes are. Needs to remember to not burn their thrusters when under torpedo threat, as that therm valve will lock in on a ship the size of an Axford. More 450 fire, continuing to go into Apple here, as Apple is getting flanked over the top. Missiles being programmed, although that's HE into the broadside of these very vulnerable missile launcher banks. Apple needs to get into cover now, or this Axford's going to get torn apart. It does have a significant amount of restores, however, that's not going to matter if that 450 really does start getting bites. E is firmly held by OSP here as ambient lamps. CLs are doing a fighting retreat. They have not identified any of the rocket shuttles, and they have managed to kill several cappers here, although they have not been able to do much of anything else. More torpedoes. Oh, that's a rocket shuttle attempt on this this Greedford here. It is rockets, which means that this Axford will be able to absorb a lot of those hits with its armor. Looks like Bravemore is now empty as Bell is beginning to pivot. Bell did get beamed a little bit there, although not much. Secret Mink jumping out, getting 450 support onto this Axford here. This Axford bit off probably a bit more than it can chew here as more of these cruise torpedoes sling around the rock here. A very interesting tech from Bell here. This Axford is burning its drives. Yep, drives shut off, likely detected the missile threat. These should go for the Chaff unless they don't have the maneuverability to do anything at all. Oh no, that Axford burned its drives. It might be therm valuable. Yep, it's therm valuable. Torpedoes hit on the back of this Axford here as the cruise torpedoes loop around and hit that Axford in a very vulnerable spot. It is still drives up, so it's able to get back into cover here. One of the escorts under fire. Secret Mink takes a lot of damage from those missiles from Apple there. Cores out the drive and a lot of the core as well. That's a lot of damage, but unfortunately without 450 support from allies, it's probably not going to be too much. Bell takes a hit from down low. The CLs deciding to push Bell. RPF going out. I would not be doing this if I were these CLs, but these cells need to swap to either HE or AP to have bite on that thing. Stars mostly recovered from the really early hits. Liners do repair themselves quite well, although they still are being very passive on the F point here. At this point, they do know that ANS has massive amounts of front line on this side of the map here. Bell is just pushing into Lambu here, trying to kill that Axford. The battleship from Surazal, I believe, is not in a really good position to cover them. Bell taking hits now as the CLs push in. These CLs are perfectly broadside, but Bell's liner is bow on. These two ships think that they're the other one, evidently. Chaff goes out, and these CLs are in full reverse. The Chaff, though, doesn't have arc. Although the defenders do, as the torpedoes are mostly cleaned up there. Bell needs to pivot those 250s into arc, or this liner is just going to get annihilated. Lambu trying to pull back into cover here to repair their Axford. Lots of, that's a lot of crits in there, although without any debuffs, the damage control team should be able to bring those crits back in order. Yep, there goes the crit. Axford is saved, although it is in a really bad spot right now, being flanked by multiple liners here, taking already crippling damage. Surazal needs to support their Axford here, but unfortunately, Stars put themselves in a perfect position to deny that. Apple pushing into Crossfire here in a ship that you do not want to do that in. Unfortunately, Apple is a bit of a new player here, probably making a little bit of a mistake there. Although they have been getting really good missile impact on a lot of OSP ships right now. These liners are very degraded, but unfortunately, due to the position of ANS's front line, the 450 is unable to really take much advantage of that. Under the map here, Secret Minx S1 strike attempting to support the CL. Knocks out the mag! Unfortunately, the R1s, or sorry, the S1s from the Barracudas there, able to get effect. Does Stacy still have Acello killers? No, all Acello killers for Stacy have been used. The CL, the liner now has arc. This is not the engagement you really want to be taking in CLs. Not this close, not with a pinpoint lock on you. Although the jamming does come out and, yeah, momentarily hide. Yep, Stacy's jamming is enough that it's actually able to hide it at this range, although it is detected if Bell is able to get that pinpoint onto arc. Is the pinpoint's still up, right? Yeah, it's still up on the bottom. Bell keeps losing track. Very, very close fight here at B. Not the fight I would have taken in those CLs. Meanwhile, Bell on the opposite side of the map continues to lob more torpedoes. These ones going for the Axford on F. Apple pushing this Axford, this very valuable asset, into really close range. No flax being deployed, or no chaff. Chaff deployed too late, and yeah, that's a dead Axford. With 450 AP already going into it, that thing's just going to get annihilated from the follow-up salvo. Meanwhile, on D here, Ambient Lamp continuing to do a fighting retreat with the CLs, unable to get much bite on anything. Excellent sensor coverage from OSP in the form of these skiffs means that these CLs are always spotted. OSP always knows where they are, and that's a really bad position to be in CLs. Stacy still trying to take this fight with Bell here, although Cheese Slayer jumps in with their 250 liner to support Bell. Bell's been effectively gutted here. The CLs are no joke at that close range. Looks like also missile support too. Unfortunately, though, with support from Cheese Slayer, these CLs are not in a position they want to be, although they do manage to kill Bell there on the point. A is still firmly in the hands of OSP without any flex to remove this cringe cap, but there's no way for ANS to really take the point there. Beam out from Surazal. Trying to go into Bell's liner here. It misses completely on the first go-around. Unfortunately, Surazal getting a really bad aim point there as the target lock comes out and the 250 comes out. Supporting fire from other ships in the area means that... Oh... Bell's on reload. Are these bearing to target? They're 250 casemates. How? There goes the structure break as Bell's liner is going to take massive damage here. Surazal just holding the B short button. Yep. Surazal canceling the B short button as Bell comes out of arc, I believe. Yeah, Bell's just going to book it back into cover. But OSP now knows that there is a beamstone there. Surazal doing what they can to hold F here with the unfortunate losses of both. Well, Lambu's still in the fight, but very much crippled. Apple is gone. OSP now knows what he needs to do, pushes onto the F point without all that front line here to stop them. ANS is going to have a hard time denying this massive liner push on the flank here. Unfortunately, Apple did really badly misplay there. This beam would have been able to do massive damage against these pushing liners. And unfortunately, the rush in, I think they were Atom missiles and decided to rush, which is what you never do. Never sacrifice your ships unless you know it's going to be impactful on the battle. Stacy now dealing with Cheese Slayer here in their very healthy 250 liner is just rushing down B, understanding that these CLs are already very damaged from their engagement with Bell. Missile support from the MMT on the other side here as Cheese Slayer does get somewhat of a crossfire on these CLs here. These are jam-covered S2s, no defenders in arc as those hit in the rear of the CLs. Not a lot of damage. They are low-caliber S2s meant to deal with small ships, although that is still something, as Cheese Slayer is now in pinpoint lock range of these CLs, and those CLs are going to get torn apart. I think, unfortunately for ANS, it's kind of already decided. The misplay from both Lambu and Apple there kind of seals their fate on the frontline fight. The CLs on the opposite flank on E, their inability to really deal with what's here being constantly spotted makes it so ANS can't really do anything there. You can see the power of having all these sensors in the forms of these skiffs. They were just kind of had to fight a fighting retreat the entire time. With the frontline collapse on F, there's nothing to stop these massive liner fleets from just swallowing up ANS, as Cheese is just going to make short work of these already damaged CLs on Boxer here, especially now that they don't have their Acello killers. Surzal pivoting their beam towards F, trying to help with the F fight. Unfortunately, the F point is already kind of lost. Potato Master is already over the top of the map, has arc on that destroyer, and will just be able to annihilate it as soon as they get guns on arc. The seals from Ambient Lamp, one of them gets gutted, likely from a 450. Yep, that was a 450 salvo from Potato Master there. You can see the Bloodhound on track. The other one is heavily damaged and just sitting on Dagger, trying to hold it. It is still winnable for ANS at this point. Whoa. The S3H is launched at extreme close range from Stacy there. Those aren't going to be doing anything at all. Yep, there goes the Boxer Cat from Cheese. I don't think that the ANS has anything left in their tanks to contest this. The throwing away of Apple's Axford there is a really rough loss for ANS, and those cruise torpedoes are nasty around the corner like that, being Act Thermval. At close range, those torpedoes can clear corners quite effectively here. Surzal doing a good job of keeping their very minimal investment BB alive here. Lost one of the drives, but it's not the worst case scenario considering that it's quad drived. Only 2 restores, not a lot of teams, means that this thing, however, is not going to be able to fight in this frontline engagement for much longer at all.
We are contesting Zone Boxer.
Boxer's being contested by what's left of Stacy's CLs here. One of them completely annihilated. The other one only has 1 gun functional, having taken those really rough initial hits from the torpedoes.
The enemy is securing Zone Boxer.
Yep, and Star just rushes around the corner here with the 450 liner at close range, looking to finish off this BB. Trying to get a flank on it with Secret Mink and likely Potato Master up top. There's the GG called from ANS, as unfortunately they recognize the writing on the wall and do throw in the towel there. A very interesting game here as we saw 2 massive frontline fleets engage each other at F. ANS did get the cap advantage really early on, but unfortunately, with that collapse of their frontline, they were just unable to hold the points that they needed to. The CLs that Ambient Lamp brought on E were just zoned out by all the sensor coverage, and the throwaway of Apple's Axford kind of sealed ANS's deal there. Torpedo hits from Bell were very high battle impact. They were able to disable most of that, most of one of the CLs on Boxer, and able to cripple this Axford here. Unfortunately, ANS just didn't have the soft kill up to deal with those missiles. I feel like this was winnable for ANS if Apple kept their Axford positioned closer to the point and in cover. It could have beamed the liners that tried to push into F and supported Lambu in the fight with Bell here. Additionally, the CL push on Boxer, engaging Bell's liner that closely was kind of a bad idea, considering that ANS already had B at that point when the CLs attempted to engage Bell there. I feel like that was kind of a misplay. Stacy could have probably pulled back the CLs, used proper range control to make sure that they always had optimal jamming range against the liner instead of pushing it. The Celicos, unfortunately, were wasted really early on. Most of them rock PD'd, unable to do much at all there. I have a feeling that if Stacy pivoted over to F to support, it would have gone a lot better for ANS there, because all ANS had to do was hold B, F, and D, and they would have won, considering that they already had points advantage early on. We're just going to wait for Surzal's surrender here. It looks like they're just farming damage in the Beamstone here. They do vaporize one of Star's liners, although at this point in the game it doesn't matter. Their BB surprisingly holding up with only 2 restores. Very well built for what it is. Now engaging fire with Bell's liner here. This is 250. This is already structure broken from the beam from earlier. Although with fire support from Secret Mink, Star's other liner, and about to be Potato Master here, as they get a flank on the BB. That's HE into the broadside of this thing. Yep, this BB's going to just get annihilated here pretty quickly. A valiant attempt for ANS, but unfortunately a couple misplays sort of sealed their deal here. All OSP had to do was wait for ANS to throw themselves into combat unnecessarily, and it opened up every window that they needed to re-secure the points. And now we will be dropping down to the VC for a post-match interview with the teams.
No, we lost one. I'm sorry, we lost one line ship.
Holy shit, liners are
the other,
dumb.
I also lost one at the very end.
You lost
got the
one,
sorry,
we lost
one.
That's 2.
Out of our like
2 liners.
7, we lost 2.
What the fuck?
That one, I feel like
Liners
what
are
decided
fucking busted.
what nah, they're strong, but I feel like what decided that one was 2 things that happened. I think ANS got too aggressive there. The CL push on B against Bell's liner probably shouldn't have happened. Considering that ANS already had B, pushing against that liner was kind of not a good idea. It was already pinned down where it was. It had to push out in order to do anything. I feel like Stacy CLs would have been much more useful somewhere between B and E there, covering both points. They would have done a lot more work at longer range. The other thing that happened with ANS, and this is kind of unfortunately a newer player thing, Apple had a very effective beam missile Axford. The missiles actually did a lot of good work. They were able to degrade a lot of the liners early on. That Axford had 3 FPAs on that beam, and Apple threw it away for free. If that beam would have been closerly positioned in cover on E side there, it could have very easily vaporized Bell, Star, anyone who tried to push him with the liners later on, which was a little bit of a misplay there. That beam would have been a really useful tool for ANS there.
When we identified the missile Axford as a missile Axford, what essentially happened is that we just focused fire on it, knowing that it had a beam. And once it was dead, we just pushed. Because we knew that, well, the beam was dead.
Yep. Which, yeah, it was kind of a misplay from Apple there. They kept that thing in the open for the entire game, despite having cruise missiles. They could have kept it in cover and been fine. In all intents and purposes, the missiles are well built. The Axford was well built. It was just a positioning issue. Which happens. It's understandable.
What's funny is I'm pretty sure what's going to happen is he's going to go, oh, Missile Axford is just bad, and return to S2 Cello. Because he does that.
I think he's too committed because he's died a lot
know.
in
I
the
don't
S2 Cello
know.
for free, and he's
I
still
don't know.
stuck with it.
They're a high blue, right? And
He messed me up.
These missiles, I would probably prefer there to be more types of missiles for different types of threats and soft kill combos. But for what it's worth, they're well built.
No S2H?
No S2H.
Did they have SSJ or BSSJ?
They had BSSJ.
They had decoys on a lot.
Yep, they're really expensive missiles, but they
lined up really
EMMs,
good.
They were good. They were
for
good.
what it's
My
worth.
EMMs
Yeah,
got ranged by them, but I still got a couple interceptions.
Unfortunately, though,
They
this
passed.
was. Oh, sorry.
They passed the perfect cruise strike for bow to stern Heck P on my line
Yeah,
ship.
they did. They
it's just
absolutely
line
vaporized.
ship moment that just killed my drives.
Yeah, and you just they hit you. That was another thing I was seeing, and this is also a newer player thing. They were prioritizing the wrong targets with the missiles. The ships that they were hitting with missiles were liners that were not under direct threat from any other alliance ship, which means that once the missiles hit, yeah, they did damage, but because there was no follow up from 450 or something else, the damage didn't matter. Which
Yeah, I was able to just.
it's an easy trap to fall into with missile ships, is that you have to be very careful about the targets you choose, and you have to understand that missiles don't kill. It's the follow-up that does. Bell's
missiles hitting me
Bell
right
was
when I was
using...
trying to disengage from the BB was a bit yikes.
Yeah.
But because I was already behind cover, it
Right.
ended up not being too big of a problem for me.
Bell
I just
was
had to
using-
stay behind cover for a little longer.
Bell was using the goofy-ass lizard cruise missile, or cruise torpedo tactic, which worked really well there. They were able to get themselves really close to rocks that had a close-range ship on the opposite side, and they were just able to path the torpedoes around the obstacle. It was a very effective tactic that worked really well. Considering that they are Act Therm Val and Act Wake Val, the amount of time that you have to actually all-stopping and soft-kill those is very limited. It was a very effective tactic that proved very powerful in that game against both the CLs and the Axford.
That was painful.
The first Bell. So the double CL you were fighting at B with one of your liners.
I was so flabbergasted that they pushed me that I just decided not to shoot them.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they it happens. But the first hits you got into that CL with the torpedoes, each CL has 2 restores. Your torpedoes, the only things they killed, you killed 4 out of the 5 guns on one of them, and the mag. You grade them all out, and the thing had 2 restores. You hit with like 2 torpedoes and instantly mission killed that CL. It was really rough to watch.
That's a CL moment, right?
Yep.
You don't have a R-mag on there, Logan?
No, they do, but it's in the core.
Like,
they do, it's in the core, though, unfortunately.
Like, same as a liner.
R-mag dies to HEI and a CL. R-mag dies to HEI and a CL.
Is that real?
Yes, because it's 20% DR.
It's not
Liners
enough
have
to stop
35.
it. You actually do lose the R-mag.
And then another thing that I
You
noticed
just double tapped
well,
it to clear the reinforced.
Another thing that I noticed as well that was very
So, like, I
impactful
guess
there is...
reinforced mag, and the second one killed it. That's great.
The other thing that I noticed there was also very impactful is that the double CL as part of ANS's cap fleet over on the F side was basically perma-spotted by Secret Minx's halberds.
The skiff panopticon.
Yeah, it was a very, very effective tactic because it prevented those CLs from really doing anything. They were perma-spotted, and the CLs knew that, and so they couldn't push, they couldn't flex, they just had to do a fighting retreat. And so ANS's assets...
It was funny. I was worried they were going to push me because it was literally just a Ruddle, another Ruddle, and the Journeyman on that side.
from like the spectator's POV, those CLs could have definitely won that fight, but because they were permanently spotted, you just kind of discouraged them from doing much aggression. Because CLs live in reality.
Also, I gotta say, they were sleeping on trying to guard that east side destroyer, because I just walked up to it with Kudas from 3 kilometers of CLs firing their RPF at a dead shuttle and just dumped it with missiles.
I assumed that Chi Slayer's MMT is what got the hits, because I wasn't watching at the time.
I got 4 hits into one of the CLs, so I did a fair amount of damage to one. But
you hit the CLs with the MMT?
No, I was waiting for a chance to say it. Whoever recommended that I swap out the Twarp tugs for MMTs on Ruby Shelf and other large maps is absolutely fucking right.
MMTs.
I got 10k.
People sleep on MMTs. They're less powerful than they used to be due to craft, but they're a fast-moving, high-damage sensor platform with jamming support and lock support. They're still incredibly effective weapon systems.